The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation-building series, The Law and You. This is program number 892, coming to you on Monday, the 12th of February, 2018. On this program, I'll speak to you on the topic Confusion in Parliament, Part 2. And the very first thing I have to say on this program is apologies to the newspaper for having said that they had published a statement that the government motion amending the opposition motion had not been signed by the Honorable Cecil Mackey. That was in fact published by the Eyewitness News and not the newspaper, and I do apologize to the news. In fact, Eyewitness News subsequently put out a correction on an article which they published on the 1st of February. They said, correction, an earlier version of this story said that 7 of the 8 government lawmakers signed a motion of confidence. It was in fact all 8 who signed. That was a correction put out by Eyewitness News. I adopt the correction and apologize once again to the news. In fact, as soon as it was brought to my attention last Friday, I telephoned the newspaper with my apology and explanation, which they graciously accepted. Well, for the longest while, I haven't sent out condolences to families which have suffered recent bereavements, and I wish to do so now. And I wish to mention in particular the passing of 3 persons who are well known to me. Firstly, Winty Roberts. He taught me in the St. Vincent Grammar School. In my 5th year, taught us history. And he challenged the class that anyone who got a 1 in history would get a banana split at Beachcombers. In those days, a banana split was something to be cherished, to be looked forward to. It was 75 cents at Beachcombers, and not many people could afford that. Well, I fortunately got a 1 in history, and Brother Winty duly gave me my banana split. Later on, I was to join him on the staff of the grammar school. He spoke a few times on our educational forum of the people and has been a fantastic ambassador for St. Vincent and Grenadines in Canada. May our Brother Winty rest in peace. Secondly, my barber for many, many years, Lloyd Lewis. One of a kind. He was capable of speaking non-stop throughout the day to those of us who went to his barbershop. We were a captive audience. Lloyd was an extremely knowledgeable and educated man. Of course, those who are from the Sion Hill and Rosa community would know the role Lloyd played in the development of that Sion Hill playing field. But above all, he was a man of affairs. He could discuss any topic of current controversy. And when eventually he got too frail to carry on his barbering work and he retired and went home, we all missed him very, very much. And finally, Pressy, Glenford Prescott. He joined the staff of Radio 705 during the time when I was Minister of Information. Prescott was a man of strong opinions, but he had an encyclopedic knowledge, particularly of sports. He could recite the statistics of West Indies cricket from way back when. And when he came forward with a point of view, Pressy would express it with conviction, confidence, and with tenacity. May he rest in peace. Now, last week I did indicate to you that I had planned to read an article written by Miss Paula David, but I was putting it off to deal with the parliamentary matters, and I would read it this Monday night. Well, once again I am putting it off because I want to finish up, round off the topic with confusion in Parliament. But I would ask you, if you have the searchlight of the 30th of January, the midweek edition, page 7 has the article, well, 7 and 8 begins on 7, to which I refer, and unless something comes up which I find irresistible to speak about, I will then on next week's program, Divi, read you Miss Paula David's article called On Misinformation, Outrage, and Critical Thinking. So that is for next week. This week, I want to highlight 3 publications on the parliamentary controversy. Firstly, a learned scholarly paper by Dr. Francis Alexis, which came out in the midweek searchlight last week. I have an emailed copy. The topic is Unique Provisions of the Vincentian Constitution on No Confidence Motions, Absurdity Alert. Now, you'll recall that towards the end of my last program, I made mention of Dr. Francis Alexis having dealt in his book, Changing Caribbean Constitutions, with the question of no confidence motions in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Those who have been in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, say around the year 2009, would recall the role Dr. Francis Alexis played when we were trying to revise our Constitution. He, in fact, was the principal draftsman of the proposed new Constitution. He spoke at several public fora here in St. Vincent and Grenadines, and we recognize him as a regional constitutional expert. And in that article, which I would ask you to, if you haven't thrown away the searchlight, which I hope you haven't, put it up. Now, it's very scholarly, so you have to take your time to go through it. But Dr. Francis Alexis analyzes in great detail the provisions of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Constitution dealing with no confidence motion. And I'm pleased to say that the position he took was the same position which was taken in Parliament by the Speaker originally, and the position that I took. So I commend Dr. Francis Alexis's article to you. Secondly, on Friday just gone, the 9th of February, Dr. Linton Lewis wrote a scholarly article again in the Searchlight newspaper, which he called Implications of Bringing the Motion of No Confidence. And again, I'm pleased to see that the points of view which I expressed were the same points of view expressed by Dr. Lewis, albeit in different language. And basically, Dr. Lewis agreed with both points of controversy, namely that a motion of no confidence can be amended by the government before debate, and that a motion of no confidence need not be dealt with automatically as soon as presented in the House. But one sentence of Dr. Lewis's article stood out for me. You remember I poured half a glass of water and posed the question, is the glass half full or half empty? Because I was making the point that the opposition motion of no confidence was the flip side of the government's amended motion of confidence. The way Dr. Lewis put it, and I will quote you from his article, Dr. Linton Lewis said, in essence, the original motion and the amended motion are 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And I'll speak a little bit on that. So again, I want to commend Dr. Lewis's article to you. You see, these scholarly articles quoting chapter and verse have to be read slowly, and you have to give them a time to digest. Now, if you really want to get the essence of the learning in those scholarly pieces, you have to take your time. You have to try and read it without passion. Now, I know that is difficult for persons who are fired up with zeal towards what they see as the righteousness of their cause. But legal matters, particularly constitutional matters, cannot be properly appreciated unless you are in a calm frame of mind. You can't be uptight when you're reading these things. You have to tell yourself, look, this is somebody who is knowledgeable in this topic. Let me try and understand what the person is saying. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to agree. For example, you don't necessarily have to agree with what I say on this program, but at least try to understand where I'm coming from. Try and grasp what I am saying. And if at the end of the day you understand what I am saying and you are not convinced, you are still in disagreement, fine. But try and understand the other viewpoint other than the one which you hold with passion. The third bit of literature I want to commend to you. In fact, ironically, it's behind the page. You see, Dr. Lewis's article stretches over 2 pages. And what I want to draw to your attention is an article at the back of page 2 of Dr. Lewis's article. It's from our brother Renwick Rose, and belated congrats, belated happy birthday on your 70th, Renwick. His weekly column called Eye of the Needle. The topic for last week, Friday, was alternative government, not permanent opposition. And he is giving what I consider to be sound advice to the New Democratic Party. And he was particularly critical of this idea of walking out of Parliament. And I'll want to touch on that before this program is finished. And I want to appeal to persons who are members or supporters of the New Democratic Party. Try and read what Renwick Rose has written. Solid common sense based on over 40 years of political activism here in St. Vincent and Grenadines by a man I consider one of our foremost intellectuals, one of our foremost activists, and known universally as a man who has fought tooth and nail in the service of the banana industry. Please take your time, read what Brother Renwick is saying over and over again. Alternative government, not permanent opposition. He is saying to NDP, position yourself so that you can become the alternative government one of these days. Don't keep on doing the things which keep you permanently in opposition. And I hope the New Democratic Party supporters would pay heed. Excuse me. Now, in the last 2 weeks, there have been 3 motions of confidence passed in the House of Assembly in support of the government. You would say 3. This is why I say 3. Firstly, there was the decision to approve the estimates. That was done on the 31st of January. The approval of the estimates by any parliament amounts to a vote of confidence in the government, because it means that a majority of the elected members have approved the estimates. That's one. Then there was a debate on the government amendment to the opposition motion of no confidence. That debate was at the conclusion put to the vote, and the government got a majority of the elected parliamentarians in support, because on a motion of confidence or motion of no confidence, both sides, different sides of the same coin, only the elected representatives are allowed to vote. So on Wednesday the 31st, the estimates were approved by the whole government side, including all 8 elected representatives. And then it came to the debate and voting on the amended government amendment to the opposition motion. And then on Tuesday, the 6th of February, the appropriation bill, popularly known as the budget, was approved by, again, a majority of the members of the House, including all 8 elected representatives on the government side. So that was the 3rd time in the span of a week. Wednesday one week to Tuesday the other week. The 3rd time that the House was expressing its confidence in the government by demonstrating that the government has the support of 8 of the elected representatives in the parliament. Now, lots have been said by people who haven't really thought about it carefully enough, that, oh, democracy has been assaulted, that what happened was unconstitutional. Constitutional what? If the opposition decide to walk out of Parliament and do not take part in the voting on the estimates, and the vote is carried by the government side, what is unconstitutional about that? They chose to be absent from the House, and I'll come to that shortly. Secondly, when the amended motion of confidence was voted upon, the opposition were absent from the House. The vote was carried by a majority of the representatives in accordance with the Constitution. Nothing unconstitutional about that, except if you want to say it was unconstitutional of the opposition to walk out of Parliament so as not to be there to take part in the debate and voting on the estimates, and to walk out again so as not to take part in the debate and voting on the appropriation bill. And I say that what the opposition did, if anything was unconstitutional, it was that because the Constitution makes it compulsory for the House of Assembly to meet and debate on and vote on the estimates and the appropriation bill at least once every year. Let me read over what I read to you last week. Section 70 of the Constitution says, 1. The minister for the time being responsible for finance shall cause to be prepared and laid before the House before or not later than 30 days after the commencement of each financial year, estimates of the revenues and expenditure of St. Vincent and Grenadines for that financial year. Subsection 2 of Section 70 of the Constitution says, when the estimates of expenditure, other than expenditure charged upon on the consolidated fund or by any law, and so on, have been approved by the House, a bill known as an appropriation bill shall be introduced in the House, providing for the issue from the consolidated fund of the sums necessary to meet that expenditure, and the appropriation of those sums on the specific votes for the several services required or purposes specified therein. Now, of the 105 sections of the St. Vincent Grenadines Constitution, this is the only section that makes it compulsory for Parliament to meet every year within a specific time frame to deal with the estimates and the budget. It is compulsory. So everybody who has a seat in Parliament or who has been appointed as a senator in the Parliament ought to feel that if it is one time they go to Parliament, it has to be at the budget time to deal with these two major matters. Because the Constitution says these sittings are compulsory. So when you decide not to go to Parliament to vote on those two compulsory matters, you are disrespecting the Constitution. Come on, I mean, you can't see it any other way. The standing orders of the House have provisions for the House to meet on other occasions. But the Constitution is saying that for the government of the country to function, for you to be able to lawfully impose taxes, receive revenues, spend revenues from the consolidated fund, you have to go through this process every year. Mandatory, compulsory. And you decide you're not going to be there for the vote. You're going to walk out. So this year we have the spectacle. I can't recall any other time in the history of this country that an opposition walked out of the debate on the estimates and the budget, didn't take part in the voting on either of them, which the Constitution says are compulsory sittings of the House. So don't come and tell me that the government did anything unconstitutional and that your rights were trampled. You brought a motion of no confidence in the government. And as has been demonstrated by Dr. Alexis, Dr. Linton Lewis, and yours humbly, is amenable to amendment. Now, let me read you. The opposition motion said in the resolution part, let us not read the whereases again. I've read those twice. One time the whole thing for the opposition, the whole thing for the government, and then side by side. Let us see what was the germ of the opposition motion. Be it resolved that this Honorable House declares no confidence in this Unity Labour Party government of Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. The Constitution itself says in section 44B, except on the recommendation of the Governor General signified by a minister, the House shall not proceed upon any motion, including any amendment to a motion, the effect of which, in the opinion of the person presiding, would be to make provision for any of those purposes. That is the ban against money bills. So the Constitution has in the words, proceed upon any motion, bracket, including any amendment to a motion. So the Constitution is saying that a motion is capable of being amended. There's nothing in the Constitution or in the standing orders which exempts motions of no confidence from being amended. So, according to the Constitution, even no confidence motions can be amended. And this is trite. But the amendment of the no confidence motion in the operative part, be it resolved, could only be the opposite, namely, what the government amended it to read, be it resolved that this Honorable House declares, be it resolved that this Honorable House express full confidence in this Unity Labour Party government of Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves. Because a motion of no confidence is such a finite proposition, any amendment of that could only be a motion of confidence. You can change up the words in the recitals as have been done. But it's either confidence or no confidence. So if on the 31st of January, the House expresses confidence in the government by approving the estimates, how could you the same day want to propose a motion and ask the government to leave it alone, not to amend it, saying that the House has no confidence in the government, when a couple hours before, the House has just said, by approving the estimates, that the House has confidence in the government? So what the opposition got wrong was their timing. A no confidence motion can never be proper in the same week of the debate on the estimates and the budget. Not unless somebody is crossing the floor. The estimates have just been approved. Confidence in the government. Yet a couple hours after that, you want to come with a motion to say the House has no confidence in the government. So the House on the same day will have confidence in the government by approving the estimates and no confidence in the government in accordance with their motion. The opposition should consider their strategizing more carefully. Motions of no confidence could be brought, of course, but not on the very day that you start to deal with the estimates. That is where they went wrong. But if they're not willing to accept they went wrong, well, all right. All right. Nobody is saying that no opposition can ever bring a motion of no confidence in the government. But you can't come in the very same time when the financial measures are being debated, which are compulsory according to the Constitution. You can't come the same day that the House has said, yes, we approve the estimates, therefore we have confidence in the government. You can't come that very day with a motion purporting to say the House has lost confidence in the government, which is what a no confidence motion is. Your motion said the House, be it resolved that the Honourable House declares no confidence in the Unity Labour Party government. Excuse me. Finally, I look forward to this matter being taken to the court for an advisory opinion. We don't have any law right now which would enable that, but the government would have to pass a law fairly soon to allow the court to give an advisory opinion to the government. Right now, courts cannot give advisory opinions. They could only deal with matters in dispute. So if a special law is passed, as was done in St. Lucia, the court could be asked to give its opinion, and then we all will hear what the courts have to say. I hope I won't have to come back to this topic until that time. But I would simply insist that, in my point of view, in my opinion, nothing unconstitutional took place at all in the last couple of weeks. What took place was massive political misjudgment. That is what took place. And until people are willing to face up to that, and in the words of Renwick, be an alternative government and not just a permanent opposition, until that time, there would just be frustration. That is all from this program of the Law and You, program number 892. I look forward to being of further service to you next week, Monday TV, for another presentation in this public service, nation-building series, The Law and You. Do have a pleasant week, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and may the good Lord continue to bless all of us.
The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.